Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. Last week, as you know, I did a piece on the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. It's still dominating the news, but some of the facts are starting to come out into the light of day, and it won't be surprised to know that a lot of these facts involve the women responsible for the collapse of this bank, and it's essentially women that's going to be affected by the collapse of this bank. So, looking around on Sunday, I found this. As you can see, it's a site called the 19th that's mostly women's issues. Now, this was written on the 17th of March this year, or about 2-3 days ago. Women and minority business owners relied on Silicon Valley Bank when other banks turned them away. Now what? Silicon Valley Bank was one of the few that would give venture-backed startups led by women, people of colour, and the alphabet mob a line of credit after the bank's collapse. They are now being hit the hardest. Now, if it was guys being affected, would we have all these articles? No, we wouldn't. But all because it's women, the alphabet mob, and people with brown skins being affected. Now, this is the 19th. I'm not going to go through it because it just gives a detail of a rundown of why these three groups are being affected. As you can see, it's very statistical in its outlook. Finding opportunities of venture capital for women that are virtually non-existent before are literally non-existent now. Well, all these strong, independent women will soon find a way. After all, they don't need no men. And as you can see, it's a lot of yada, yada, yada. I naturally put all the links below. In support of that, I also found this from Forbes. Silicon Valley Bank collapsed disproportionately impacts underbanked founders, which were women. It is well known that Silicon Valley Bank has the largest US bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis. Which is less talked about is the disproportional impact it has on women founders and founders of colour, who have historically been underbanked, even with the FDIC, wherever that is, ensuring that depositors have access to their capital. Now this supports this article. Again, it's more or less the same thing as this was also written by a woman. This was on the 13th of March. And we got the contributor, a lady called Rebecca Bastian. Moving on, I've also found this, Fortune magazine. 3 female founders scramble to protect their startups as Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. There was no playbook. That's one of the startup ladies, Ashley Tyrner. She's her company's Farmbox RX. And there's no article because you've got to pay money, so sod that. But it just says there's no playback. The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, the financial institution that housed the capital of much of the startup ecosystem, wreaked havoc over the weekends. Startup founders are unsure they could access their funds. Employees are worried about their next paycheck. And even Etsy sellers were hit as the platform paused payouts. Again, it's mostly affecting women. And I found this, the She People, the women's movement. Silicon Bank collapse, women CRO blamed for failure. A woman was in charge of it collapsing. A lady called J. Sapa, boss of financial risk management at Silicon Valley Bank. That could be her. I'm not going to get her talking because you can do that when you click on this link, if you want to, that is. Silicon Valley Bank collapse, women executives blamed. the Silicon Valley Bank was functioning without a chief risk officer. I think that's her. From April 22 to January 23. Well, on the other hand, the CRO at the UK branch was being accused of prioritising her initiatives related to pro-diversity over her actual role and work for the bank. In other words, all these women who think they're equal to men, she wasn't really doing her job. That lady at the top, Silicon Valley Bank's head of risk management, who used a platform similar to for Capital One, that's a major London radio station, earlier left the SVB in April 22 and is yet to be replaced. And then it goes on about it. A user of Twitter wrote, "This is what happens when the head of the financial risk of any bank is concerned more about woke politics than taking care of the financial risk of the bank." The bank essentially had mostly women on the board of directors, while some social media users took her side and claimed that hyper-capitalistic mentality and greed, which is the reason behind the bank's collapse, are not Jay Ashton's woke roles. And on the subject of woke, I found this. Is the backlash over SVB collapse a threat to woke investments? And then if they're worried that their precious ESG is too important to fail, not too big to fail, said Scott Nadler, a long-time consultant whose work includes advising clients on environmental, social, government-related policies. And then you can read about it, they're complaining. But Brother Nathaniel, that I follow, also has a take on this collapse. Whoops. The Jews behind the SVB collapse. I'll put this link below as well, but he has his take as if you go click on that. Israeli firms transferred $1 billion out of the Silicon Valley Bank to Israel just before the seizure by the feds. So they saw what was coming, so they got the money out and transferred it to Israel. He's worth listening to, Brother Nathaniel is. But anyway, back to this topic. This is mostly affecting women. Maybe not a few guys, but mostly affecting women, the alphabet mob, and African and Latino Americans who had their money in it. And ladies like that are also being affected. But if the bank was run by guys, straight white guys, and it went under, would we have all this coverage? No. How this is going to affect MGTOWS and single guys? That's anybody's guess. I couldn't find anything related to Silicon Valley Bank and MGTOWS. Nothing whatsoever. But this is indicative of all these single women that's going to be affected. These single women are going to have financial problems. That means these single women may want a guy to bail them out, as in they've been the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule, and they won't lower the standards. They still want to be picky about who they date and who they get into relationships with. But this is an ongoing saga that's not had its full economic effect yet, as there's been two more banks that's gone belly up. But if the whole of the Western world goes into a recession and then a depression, then we'll see a major change on the relationship issues and dating and marriage and everything else right across the board. Silicon Valley Bank is essentially just the first domino that's to fall, and the rest is coming. we've got the new financial year starting in a couple of weeks, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. As for this video, I think I'm on the 10-minute mark now. I don't like going above that, but sometimes I got no option with what I want to cover, so for now I'll leave it at that. I might do another one on Sunday about Star Wars and carry on with MGTOWS on Monday. I think that's going to be what I'll do now, but don't bank on it. Right, people, you know the routine. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, etc. It's completely up to you. So until next Sunday or Monday, that's it for this one. Bye-bye.